Days of Elijah. My name is Daniel Vallis and welcome to our channel. I hope you've had the opportunity to go out and look at Jupiter if you're an early morning person, but if you go outside and look toward the east about 3 hours before sunrise, you will see Leo, the lion, rising. You will also see Hydra, the serpent, off to its right too as well, and then you'll see Virgo, the woman, rising shortly below that with Jupiter. And you'll see Jupiter a little over an hour before sunrise. And again, it's a great connection of reality when you see the celestial signs going on in your world and in your setting to what we've been studying to as well. It's a great way to bring home the reality of what we've been looking at. And it's also a great reminder that even though there's a lot we don't understand, we can look into the heavens, we can lift up our heads, we can look up and see that God is in control. And so it builds our faith when we can go out and look at the signs and see this transpiring in our world at this time. Now you should see a slight sliver of the moon, and they'll be right near Regulus on the 24th from Jerusalem's perspective, but you'll see it the same anywhere. And then if you just mentally draw a line from that area down to where the sun's going to be popping up, that will give you an idea of where the ecliptic is. Now Jupiter will be visible a little over an hour before sunrise, and technically Mercury will be, but it's so close to the sun that you won't be able to see it right now. And if we just look at an astronomical perspective of where things are, on the 21st, my time zone, but really the 22nd in Jerusalem, you could see where the sun is in relation to the horizon and Mercury. And then off to the far right, you see Jupiter over there, slowly approaching Porima, which is the start star of the Chaldean grouping for the woman and what they call the furrow. So that's the 22nd in Jerusalem, then the 23rd, the 24th, 25th, 26th, 27th, 28th. And you can see about 27th, 28th, depending on your time zone. That is when Mercury is going to be technically below the horizon. So right now Mercury is above the horizon technically, but it's slowly going off the scene over the next few days. And the same time that Jupiter is reaching the start star along the ecliptic, Mercury is also going off the scene too as well. And this was a very interesting reminder several days ago when Mercury and Jupiter were seen next to each other right in the morning sky. So visually we've seen this celestial rehearsal of John the Baptist prepare you the way, but also reminded of the spirit of Elijah, and that Elijah is also the one caught up in a fiery whirlwind up into heaven too as well. So multiple pictures here of the message prepare the way. We need to make ourselves ready. We need to purify our lives and sanctify our lives, prepare our hearts and lives, listening to the warnings. Now we're on the 23rd of October right now. Running out of time. We are also in the midst of some amazing shadow patterns coming together, and we've studied so much that the Lord's brought our attention to. We are in the days of Noah and Lot with the scripture readings scheduled at this time, the patterns too as well, the dates recorded in scripture as well. A lot going on right now, and the days of Noah and Lot will go through about the 28th and 29th of October too as well, with Noah leaving the ark. That date is just beyond that. Now, I did some more research on the historic date-based borders that we were looking at. And again, these aren't definitive borders, but they are highly connected time frames. And so we've been marking where a 150-degree division between the constellations would be at different time periods, very important prophetic time periods, and it's just amazing to see how it's been lining right up in the same time that all these shadow patterns have been occurring too as well. We've looked at Daniel and Malachi and Isaiah and Micah. And so I did some more research today. And around the 27th of October, that would be approximately where the division would have been at 950 BC, which was the high end of Elijah's time period. Sometime between now and then was the general time period for Elijah, and particularly when he was caught up into heaven. Now, I've updated our Finding Judah's border document with the technical details for that date, and then also added a bit about how we've been also looking at the 30 and 10 degree divisions based on Jupiter's retrograde. So I've added that, updated that. That's in the Gathering folder on our Google Drive. I've put a couple things there just to organize and clean things up. But definitely download that and print that out if you like the reference. One of the main references I've been using for dates from a historical and biblical perspective is Ussher's book, The Annals of the World. And this is my first stop when looking up any date from a biblical perspective. And it's in here that they remark on paragraph 5 to 4 that Elijah was taken up into heaven in a fiery chariot in 896 BC. And I'm reminded how we've been looking at Isaiah 38 and 40 and all these pictures with Hezekiah and the sundial, but then also the reminder of prepare ye the way of the Lord, and pointing to John the Baptist, who Christ himself told his disciples that John came in the spirit of Elijah. So it's just amazing to see how we've been studying different things coming together right now and pointed to with these highly connected time frames, these prophetic times of ministry that happened and how they're being rehearsed right now. But then we also see tie-ins with things that are happening right now in this celestial sphere and with shadow patterns and the scripture readings at this time too as well. We're seeing a lot come together and brought to our attention, a lot of the deep connections and the depth of God's Word. And it's also been amazing to see the Chaldean emphasis throughout all this of the Bible constantly, and we've seen this a lot, constantly referring to the Chaldean perspective because that was the gold standard. And I've said this several times, that we are looking at the celestial stars and the lion and the woman, Virgo and Leo. We're looking at those stars not from a modern perspective, but we're looking at them from the biblical perspective of how they would have looked at them. What was the standard? What was the gold standard for looking at celestial objects? From the time of Abraham, all the way back to the time of Abraham, all the way up through the time of Daniel and beyond. And so this was a perspective that many of these prophetic passages were written from and that the individuals were familiar with. And so it does us good to look from their perspective. And the Bible even records how the wise men, the perspective that they had when looking at the celestial events regarding the star of Christ's first coming. And so this is why we're looking at the Chaldean stars and how they grouped them. And we are constantly seeing reminders of the connection to all the individuals and in light of prophecy too as well and all these other events that we've been looking at. So it's real interesting today as I was thumbing through Usher's book on history, and I just happened to land on this particular page, paragraph 1891. It's talking about when Alexander the Great came into Babylon. And just mentioned among those who entertained Alexander in this city were the Chaldeans. They talked with him concerning the movements of the heavenly bodies and the appointed changes of the seasons. The Chaldeans gave somebody, one of Alexander's followers, their observations of the heavenly bodies for 1903 years of time, dating back to the founding of Babylon about 14 years after the birth of Peleg. Somebody later gave these records to Aristotle in Greece. And I mentioned before about how the Babylonians, their records went way back. And this is why they had the gold standard, because they had very detailed records of the movements of the celestial heavens. Why they were able to make predictions about the movements of them and their almanacs that were very accurate, 100 years in advance. And so I just thought it very interesting coming across this reference about how their records went all the way back to the time of Peleg, which was the time of the Tower of Babel. And you can turn back to paragraph 50 in the book if you have it too as well. And it's interesting that it was common knowledge that a lot of the knowledge that the Greeks had about the celestial heavens came from the very vast and detailed long-term records that the Chaldeans had from Babylon and how it was handed over to them later on in history. And this is well attested. But the fact that the Babylonians, their records, went way back all the way to the time of Nimrod. And notice about halfway down from these writings, it appeared that the Babylonians devoted themselves to the study of astronomy even from the very days of Nimrod, from whom all that region took the name of the land of Nimrod. Nimrod built Babylon and was the instigator of the building of the Tower of Babel according to Josephus. Moses affirmed that the royal seat of that kingdom was here. Nimrod made Babylon famous in those days. And so the Chaldean perspective, the Babylonian astronomical records, they were the gold standard, and they went way back all the way to the time of Nimrod in the Tower of Babel. And the Bible even tells us, Genesis chapter 10, verse 9, even as Nimrod, the mighty hunter before the Lord, and the beginning of his kingdom was Babel. And you have to keep in mind with the Tower of Babel, the context of it. The Tower of Babel was built as a response to Noah's flood. They did not want to spread out. And the Tower of Babel was built in rebellion, a rebellious spirit, because they wanted to build a tower that would survive another flood if another flood was sent, even though God promised he would never flood the entire world again. But the Tower of Babel was built after the flood in response to the flood. And so we have to keep these two together. When we see the imagery and the messaging that the enemy is using at this time, it is a rebellious message too as well, just in that same vein. They are responding to the flood of judgment that God sent on the world. They are rebelliously and arrogantly, with the spirit of Nimrod, flaunting their plans that they are, in a sense, rebuilding the Tower of Babel. And so we have to keep this in context. This Tower of Babel messaging that we're seeing goes hand in hand with the flood, the days of Noah. Noah and his sons were still alive when the Tower of Babel was built. You have to keep that in mind too. There's a lot of overlap between a lot of these stories that we're seeing at that time. When Christ said he's coming back during the days of Noah and Lot, that encompasses some very powerful pictures, including the Tower of Babel, which is in between the time of Noah and Lot. And the enemy knows exactly what time it is, and they've been putting out a lot of messaging real recently, putting emphasis on before the flood. It's not before the flood, it's before the flood. Because they know this is prophetically where we are on the celestial clock. This is where we are. We are before the flood. Judgment is coming again. And they know there won't be a worldwide flood, but they know end-time events are about to happen. And they know, and they are broadcasting, literally, if you know the scriptures, that we are in the days of Noah and Lot right now. And from their perspective, they are happy because they think they are about to be unrestrained. And so we have to keep this in mind when we look at the calendar. Don't just necessarily get locked into seeing the commemorative dates of Noah entering the ark and the flood starting and the warning and even when he went out. You have to think a little bit beyond that. This whole time period, these days and these weeks and this whole area here, there's some extremely powerful pictures that Scripture is calling up again in prophecy. When Christ said he's coming during the days of Noah and Lot, he was talking about very specific characteristics of how the world will be living. But then we also see it right here at the end of the Shiloh prophecy for the gathering. And then right at the time of commemorative dates and scripture reading too as well. And we have seen that there's Tower of Babel messaging in the days ahead too as well. The enemy knows exactly what time it is. They know what the time is. They know what the prophetic signs are. They're not looking toward next year. They're looking toward right now. They know the time is right now. And they know the Shiloh prophecy and that the Lion of the tribe of Judah is about to gather his people. And I was reminded yesterday on the Institute for Digital Archaeology's website, the organization that put up the arch, they have a mention on their New York page that they had a little sing thing there right at the arch too, where they sang Bridge Over Troubled Water. And we've been talking about water and time, and this is what they are anticipating. They know they are about to be unrestrained, and they know there's going to be a bridging, so to speak, of time. There's a bridge over troubled waters. And the Son of Perdition is about to make his triumphal entry. And also a very interesting illusion that the stage is set right in context of all this. And all the world's a stage too. They've been getting ready for this moment for a long time. But we're seeing a lot more Tower of Babel messaging. And they've been laying this down for a year too as well, putting out this messaging of the connection between the Tower of Babel rebellion and the spirit of Nimrod and what the Tower of Babel epitomized. But then also in connection with their future plans, their future Tower of Babel, so to speak, a time gateway, and messing with time, changing time, we see them building up to this ideal too as well. And yesterday it came to my attention that on October 6th, just a few days ago, a very interesting archaeological display went up at the Colosseum in Rome. The Bull of Nimrod destroyed by ISIS to be recreated in Rome. Yes, they're having a very interesting display at the Colosseum, and it's called Rising from the Ashes, or Rising from Destruction too. But they're featuring three main works, some from Ebla, Nimrod, and Palmyra at this exhibit, and they're all featuring replicas. Very interesting. A replica is not the original, but is bringing back the shadow of it. And so it's very interesting to see the whole idea of replica and duplication at this time, because that's what they're wanting to do. They're duplicating a work in rebellion that has been done thousands of years ago back at the Tower of Babel and at the time of Noah too as well, and even in the spirit of Sodom and Gomorrah with Lot at his time too as well. We are seeing a duplication. All of this messaging and patterning and these figures and archetypes, it's being brought back up again. Right now we're in the days of Noah and Lot, and those pictures are being replicated, so to speak, being brought back up for our rehearsal, and that's what we're looking at from a biblical perspective. But the enemy is also duplicating and bringing up messaging again for their near future plans. So they have this set up at the Colosseum there in Rome, and you also notice in the news too that the Colosseum's getting a bit of news attention too as well. They're bringing attention to the Colosseum, making sure their disciples take note of it and what's happening there. So this isn't just some little art exhibition off somewhere. No, they're bringing attention to it with very deliberate exhibits. Now it's going through December 11th, so several more weeks than right in this time frame we are looking at. So they have a life-size replica of the Bull of Nimrod there. And they have a portion of the Temple of Baal there too as well. They don't have the entire temple, but just a roof portion of it they duplicated. And so they have that on exhibit too as well. Very interesting because we've been seeing a big push with the arch from Palmyra. They've been putting that up everywhere, and that's right across the street from the Temple of Baal, which is what this replica comes from. So interesting that they're bringing this and tying all these together. But then they also have another exhibit called the Archives of Ebla, which is a famous collection of different tablets, a large collection too as well. So they're pushing all three of these at the Colosseum. And the name of the exhibit is Rising from Destruction. And they have the Baal temple roof portion, which of course evokes the Baal Gate. Then they have the Bowl of Nimrod and the Ebla Tablet Archive Room. And so those are the three main exhibits, and some smaller ones there too as well. But those are the three main exhibits that they've replicated and duplicated and brought to people's attention. But it's interesting that's at the Colosseum, because the Colosseum was built in part with money from Titus's plundering of Jerusalem, the Arch of Titus. So it definitely evoked that, for me at least, right in connection with the Baal Gate too as well. But the venue is just as important as what they're promoting too. And then of course the title definitely evokes the Phoenix concept. And by bringing attention to the Baal temple roof portion, they're messaging also the Baal Gate, and by proximity, because it's right across the street from it, is the triumphal arch that we've been seeing a lot too as well. They're tying all this together. And of course, we've been looking at a lot of the triumphal gate arch connection to the Titus arch too as well. And then the Bowl of Nimrod, that is interesting because that evokes Nimrod, who built the city of Babel, which was the site of the Tower of Babel. And so they're bringing up some very powerful messaging right now, right when we're in the days of Noah and Lot. And this is important because it's not months down the road or a few months prior. It's right at this exact time that they're setting all this up at. They know exactly what time it is, prophetically, and also even the true calendar too as well. And Babylon, which Nimrod was involved with. That was the seat and start of many of the pagan mystery religions of Babylon. They started here at the Tower of Babel and with Nimrod and Babylon too as well. The mystery religions of Tammuz and Ishtar, Marduk and all them, they got their start here. Baal too as well. And so this is a very powerful picture that's being brought up right now that they're emphasizing. The whole idea of resurgence and replicating an ancient work. The mystery of iniquity has been working to bring back, in a sense, their Tower of Babel and their one world order, their new world order. And they intend to get rid of the old way that things have been done too as well. But they are bringing this back up. This is what they want to replicate. Now, the Ebla Tablet Room was very interesting. Took me a while to figure out why it was connected or why they were emphasizing it. But it doesn't take too long when you start researching about it and just doing different archaeological studying about it. You'll find a lot of remarks about how the Ebla tablets made mention of Canaan and Haran and Sodom and Gomorrah and just biblical names of cities and areas. And you'll find a lot of research, and even from biblical archaeology magazines too as well, talking about how the Ebla Tablet Room is one of the main sources that gives credence to and verifies a lot of the early city names that the Bible records, particularly in Genesis, that they were true. Even before people found out or thought they weren't going back that far, the Ebla Tablet Room seems to make mention of these city names, that they were real places and they existed quite some time ago. And there is some dispute about some of the wording on them too as well. But you'll find that the overwhelming consensus and the message that you get from the Ebla Tablet, just research, is the strong connection with these places. And so they're putting out some very interesting messaging at this time. The Baal Gate, closely connected with the roof portion, and then the Triumphal Arch Gate too as well. Nimrod, the Tower of Babel too as well, which was built in response to Noah's flood. And Nimrod knew and interacted with Noah's sons. This was right at that time. And then also making mention of archaeological references that reference the days of Lot, which is where we're at right now too as well. Sodom and Gomorrah, ancient cities such as that. And also mentioning Haran, which was where Abram was from as well. And he was at the same time too as well as a Tower of Babel. And extra biblical resources talk about how Abram clashed with Nimrod, and Nimrod viewed Abram as a threat because they were at the same time. And the enemy is the one bringing up all this messaging right now. They're duplicating and replicating this messaging. The days of Noah and Lot and some of the primary individuals who were involved there, particularly the Tower of Babel. Which also reminds us of the next thing on their agenda is setting up the triumphal arch at another picture of the Tower of Babel in just a few days and weeks ahead. This is the messaging the enemy is doing, pointing to this time, that they know we are before the flood, prophetically, picture-wise. We're in the days of Noah and Lot, which encompasses also the Tower of Babel. They know exactly what time it is. They've been putting out a lot of messaging that they know what time it is. They are waiting for the ready bride to be called home, to be gathered by Shiloh, the Lion of the tribe of Judah. Then they will be unrestrained. And their mystery of iniquity that they've been working on for thousands of years, their Tower of Babel effort, is going to be unrestrained. And they're going to be allowed to go back to that. And they're going to proceed with it. And when you look at the bull of Nimrod that they set up here at the Colosseum, notice the winged figure there, who is often seen in various engravings with it. It's a depiction of the fallen angels. And we've covered this before. This is the exact same depictions that they have at the Dolby Theater in Hollywood, where the Oscar Awards are done. They have their own massive stylized version of the Ishtar Gate, and they have their fallen angel references right on it. And they have other references to the Babylonian lions there too as well, other fallen angel references. And down on the courtyard floor they have a huge serpent and other references to the fallen angels there too. You can see one on the right. And you could see it really well on Google aerial images, the Ishtar Gate with the giant serpent there in the courtyard right next to the Dolby Theater. And we talked about when they premiered the Alice Through the Looking Glass here in America, that they had a big promotional event right on the road in front of the Dolby Theater, set up right in line with the arch and the gateway and the serpent, which points directly at the Hollywood sign. And this is what Satan uses Hollywood for. It's for preconditioning and for messaging. That's its entire purpose. To precondition people with their subconscious anchors that they put out through their different messaging, so people will react in a programmed, preconditioned way when the real events that they are orchestrating, when they happen. So Satan uses it for messaging, but then also for preconditioning of the general masses who are unaware of the messaging that's in it. And we've been noticing, especially over the past year, they've been getting their disciples ready because they know what time it is. And it should, again, catch our attention that the enemy is setting this up right during the days of Noah and Lot. The prophetic days, the general world condition days too as well, but then also the specific literal days. And they set it up on October 6th, right almost to the day of all these events happening, right in the thick of it. Not a few weeks before, not a few weeks after. No, right at the exact time, because they know what the right calendar is. They know what the celestial movements are. They know what time it is. They know Shiloh is about to gather his people, and then they will be unrestrained. That's why they're watching. They know what time it is. They do not know the day or hour either, but they know it's right around here somewhere. And so they set this up on October 6th, and it's going to be going through December 11th. But they set it up right at these days. Very specific messaging, replicating themes that point to Abram, the Tower of Babel, the flood, Noah's Ark, and then referencing their future Tower of Babel pictures, which we've also talked about just prior to this too as well. And then also another exhibit that points to Abram and Sodom and Gomorrah right at this time too as well. They know exactly what time it is. I just found it interesting today too as well that this is close to the border of Elijah, and Elijah is most known for his confrontation with the priests of Baal at Mount Carmel when he called down fire from heaven for the sacrifice there. That was a big connection between Baal and Elijah. And if you read 1 Kings 18, read the account. This was a decision time for the people of Israel there to decide who were they going to serve, who were they going to follow. And this is the same place that the world is at today too as well. The days of Elijah. The world is on a threshold right now. Who are we going to serve? This is a decision time. And in the days ahead prophetically during the tribulation time, it's going to be a very stark choice between who are you going to serve. Are you going to serve the gods of this world? Are you going to serve those that exalt themselves against God? Or are you going to serve God? We are in the days of Elijah right now. The spirit of Elijah is giving out so many messages to prepare the way. And we see celestial reminders too of the spirit of Elijah. Prepare the way. Choose who you will serve. Which way are you going in life? Remember Lot's wife. Where is your heart? What are your affections set on? Now is a decision time. Are we living for God or are we living for this world? How we live is going to be a reflection of that. We have to be like Enoch and Noah and Abraham. We have to seek an eternal city. We have to live for eternity. Not have our eyes distracted and focused on this world. Not living for this world. No. We have to look at the eternal city. Look at the promises of God and live in light of Christ's return. Christ said he was coming back during the days of Noah and Lot. We are here right now. The enemy knows that too as well. Are we living accordingly? Are we rising up? Are we trimming our lamp? Are we standing firm for the Lord? Right now where we are at is the days of Noah and Lot. But then in the few days ahead, we also find some other interesting pictures. When we scooch the timeline down just a little bit, we're coming up on the days of the dead, which include Halloween, Samhain, Days of the Dead 1, Day 2, and All Souls Day. In different cultures around the world, the days of the dead are about to be observed. This is nothing that any Christian should have a part of. This time, the days of the dead, is all about celebrating the Nimrod spirit, the rebellion against God, what happened at the flood, too, as well, celebrating death. This is a very occult and pagan time, and Christians should have nothing to do with it. But it's interesting, we see this right on the horizon, just past the default border that we see with the 27th. And we also see it right at this time of Noah and Lot too as well. And there's a reason why the days of the dead are at this time on the calendar all the time too as well. Because the Bible makes mention in Job 26:5, dead things are formed from under the waters and the inhabitants thereof. And that word dead things there is the Hebrew word rapha, which means ghost. The demons and the evil spirits, those are a result of what happened during the flood. Demons and evil spirits, those are a result of the flood. Those who died during the flood. Satan's descendants, primarily those that were a result of the fallen angels coming down to mankind. This is what is commemorated at the Days of the Dead. It's a memorial service for Satan's descendants and his seed that was killed during the flood. And that's why it's held at this time, too, as well, right near the actual biblical date commemoration of the flood. And this is what's commemorated. And this is what they want to avenge. What happened during the flood, and they want to rebuild what was destroyed, their golden age that was before the flood. We mentioned this the other day on the Institute for Digital Archaeology's website regarding the Dubai section, about they were making a very heavy-handed message about the golden eras in our past that have been lost, that were destroyed, and how that they want to literally roll back the clock and restore what was destroyed. They want to restore their golden age. They want to restore what the flood destroyed. That's all the messaging that they're doing here. They are working on the new Tower of Babel effort, the spirit of Nimrod, to avenge what happened during the flood. That is the messaging that they've been building up to. That's the whole commemorations that are going on right now. That's the whole crux behind Halloween, is to commemorate the working of Satan and what was destroyed by the flood, all that wickedness. And this is why Christians should have no part of it. We should not be celebrating or observing the very things that God sent judgment upon the world for. And we certainly commemorate it in a positive light, that God had to judge that wickedness. All of this is coming together right now. And Satan's disciples are getting all excited because they are about to be unrestrained. They are about to avenge what happened right during the days of Noah and Lot. And they're pointing and they're celebrating the whole Tower of Babel aspects, and Nimrod and Baal and the whole Babylon mystery religions. They know exactly what time it is. The question is, do we realize what time it is? We are quickly running out of time. And every day we go forward is becoming more and more stark, the difference in the reality of this is a decision time. Who are you going to serve? Now is the time when we are called to go out. We are called to leave the Sodom and Gomorrahs. We are called to leave our cities like Abram. Now is a separation time. Prepare ye the way. Christ is coming. Shiloh is coming. He wants us prepared when he gets here. But it's also interesting that the Alice Through the Looking Glass, the film, was announced right during the Days of the Dead last year, 2015. The very first announcement came out on November 1st, right in the middle of the Days of the Dead. And Satan has been using the last year with all the messaging that was in that to prepare their disciples for the days of Noah and Lot where we are right now. Right in context of the celestial clock, the gathering of Shiloh's people. They've been watching the clock. They've been getting ready. And they've been using their Hollywood to prepare the way and to condition people to what's about to happen too as well. And right at the time of the Days of the Dead, they put out very short teasers right away, emphasizing a door opening in heaven and the feminine figure falling to the earth. And the clockwork in the Tower of Babel. This was some of the first imaging that they were putting out a year ago, right during the Days of the Dead, right coming full circle to where we are right now, the days of Noah and Lot, where they're emphasizing this exact same message again with Nimrod and Tower of Babel and setting up at Dubai. They've been emphasizing this in connection with all this patterning for a year now. They know exactly what time it is. And in these very short teasers that they put out back then, they were only a few seconds long, they were emphasizing with big text, it's time to go back. It's time to go back. It's about time. Time is not on your side. This is the messaging that they were putting out a year ago, right in connection with their most important day on their calendar, the Days of the Dead. Time is not on your side. Time has come. They emphasized also the concept of coming from the heart of the earth, from the underworld. And keep in mind, Halloween, the Days of the Dead, all of that is to celebrate Cernunnos, the god of the underworld, the horned god of the underworld, Cernunnos. And they were putting out visual reminders at the exact same time that this is what it's all about. It's all what the Alice Through the Looking Glass is all about, coming from the heart of the earth and time. And they know as soon as the bride is called out of the way, they will be unrestrained. They've been putting out messaging in multiple channels that they know what time it is and that the son of perdition is about to make his triumphal entry. And then their Tower of Babel work, their Nimrod work will be unrestrained. Where they set it up the first time, at Trafalgar Square, we talked about the Antichrist pattern with Horatio Nelson, how his name means timekeeper. He's connected with the palm, the phoenix tree in his motto and heraldry, and he was blind in his right eye and missing his right arm, a perfect archetype for the Apollyon figure. But then also the column that he's standing on, the capital is modeled after the Temple of Mars, the Avenger. And this is what they're wanting to do. They are going to avenge what happened during the flood. They're going to be unrestrained. And this is why you see the Alice imagery with Cernunnos, the god of the underworld. And it should catch your attention that Cern is built underground. That's what it's all about. Time, the manipulation of time, opening dimensional gateways. And they were cross-promoting all this at the same time. They know it's about time to go back. They know the world is running out of time. They know the Shiloh prophecy, and they've been getting ready for the past year, getting ready for an upheaval and massive change is required now. They know a flood of judgment is about to come. This world is about to be turned upside down, so to speak. One that leads to a new collective consciousness, a new collective evolution of the human race inspired and enabled by a sense of urgency from all of you. And this is what Leo DiCaprio said at the UN Climate Change Conference. And they've been getting the world ready in context of the Shiloh prophecy that they are about to be unrestrained and that there's about to be an upheaval and massive change. And they had this speech on the same day as International Mother Earth Day. And we talked about the messaging and the picture on their website that they had. They know it's all in connection with the flood and the harvesting and the rainbow. And they mockingly know God will not flood the world again. The rainbow is a sign of judgment. It's a reminder that God will not judge the world again that way, but he will judge the world again. But they know their massive change, their version of evolution going back to their golden age is going to be in connection with the days of Noah. This is what they've been preparing the world for. They know the time, and they are getting ready. This is also why you will find a great uptick in spiritual attack at this time too as well. We are all weary, but we must be extra sober. We must be extra vigilant because these days leading up to the Days of the Dead are filled with a lot of pagan and occult activity, and there's a lot of spiritual wickedness going on at this time too as well. So we must be on extra guard and stay close to Christ at this time. Stay in his word, spend time with him in prayer. We are running out of time. The enemy knows it, and they are getting busier and busier and busier. When we zoom out a bit and we just look on the big picture, we can see the enemy has been building up to this time for a while, and they've been messaging at the point where we are now. They know where we are now is important. The days of Noah and Lot now. Not a year from now. No, where we are right now. the Shiloh prophecy. And when we look at the time period of them putting up this recent messaging, rehearsing so much and calling to mind so much right in this context of the days of Noah and Lot and the Tower of Babel, the results of the flood too as well, and then even going up to the time of Hanukkah, the enemy knows what time it is. And they've also indicated that they're going to be setting up the Triumphal Arch at Dubai sometime in late 2016, which is going to be the Tower of Babel reference. So that's interesting to see that that's in the future. They know other prophetic events are about to start. They also know that sometime between now and then, they expect to be unrestrained and their mystery of iniquity work, their Tower of Babel work, is going to be allowed to continue. When we understand the biblical background story about Shiloh, about Abraham and Noah, and even Lot too as well, when we understand the biblical pictures and the patterns of what Christ has told us to look for and how that deals with prophecy and what even Christ even told his disciples, we have a better understanding of what is going on in the world right now, what the enemy is doing, what we should be doing, how we should be living in light of what the world is doing right now, what time it is on the celestial clock, and that we should be paying attention to the celestial clock. Prepare ye the way. Remember Lot's wife. In our Shiloh booklet, we cover a lot of the background story of understanding what are these celestial signs about. What is the prophecy that goes all the way back to the very first pages of the Bible, that goes all the way through the end of the Bible. When we understand the Shiloh story, the Alpha and the Omega, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Messiah, Christ, the Redeemer, the King, when we understand the story, we know what time it is. We could see and understand what the heavens are declaring. And it also gives us insight as watchmen of what the enemy is doing, and that they know what time it is too. The enemy is fully aware of these shadow patterns, and this is what they are referencing to as well, mockingly, but they know the biblical patterns. And in our Shiloh booklet, we cover Abraham and his connection with astronomy and the Chaldean perspective and the constellations and the stars. And we even talk about Job was fully familiar with the crooked serpent Hydra that's in the heavens. And that references the garden prophecy, Genesis 3:15, and I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed and her seed, and it shall bruise thy head, and thou shalt bruise his heel. And God was talking to the serpent right there. He says, I will put enmity between thee and the woman, and between thy seed, the serpent's seed. The fallen angels, how they mingled with mankind. There's going to be enmity between his descendants and the son of the woman, who would be Messiah, the Redeemer. And it all goes back to the serpent. These main characters, when we understand the core story that starts at the beginning of the Bible, we understand what's going on in the end of the Bible too as well. The last days where we are right now. The story has not changed. The story is still ongoing. The battle is still ongoing. The woman, the serpent, the heel, the Redeemer. And it should catch our attention that in Job 26:5, the very chapter where he's talking about dead things are formed from under the waters and the inhabitants thereof, talking about those that died of Satan's seed during the flood, that is a reference to the serpent too as well. And we can go out and look in the celestial heavens and see the story that has not changed. We can see the story of the serpent, the lion treading on the serpent, the woman, and how the Redeemer sprang out of Judah, was born of a woman. He's the one who's going to bruise the serpent. He's going to bruise him repeatedly and repeatedly until the end of the world, when he's finally going to put him under. This story is rehearsed in the heavens right now, and we can go outside and look at it, being rehearsed and our attention being drawn to it. But prepare ye the way. This is still ongoing. Satan knows he's about to be unrestrained, and he's about to avenge what happened to his seed, what happened to the serpent's seed. Again, this is rehearsed in the Shiloh booklet. So definitely check it out and keep it in mind. This is what is happening right now. This is what the heavens are declaring right now. That Shiloh is coming to gather his people. And all these other aspects are still in play. We are in the days of Elijah. We have so many warnings going on right now that we are at a decision time. Who will we serve? Who will we live for? We cannot just straddle the fence and not pick a side. No. We are called to prepare the way. We are called to remember Lot's wife. We are called to rise up, to separate ourselves, to go out, keeping in mind the heavenly city, keeping in mind the eternal, keeping in mind our Redeemer. We are at a decision time. How we live right now shows our decision. Romans 13:11, and that knowing the time, that now it is high time to wake out of sleep. For now is our salvation nearer than when we believe. The night is far spent. The day is at hand. Let us therefore cast off the works of darkness, and let us put on the armor of light. When we realize the time, we realize it is a decision time. There are things we must be doing right now. especially when we realize we are in the days of Noah and Lot and right on the threshold of some incredibly occult dark days, the days of the dead that celebrate Satan's seed being destroyed by God. Christians should have no part of that. Now when we know the time prophetically, what's on the celestial clock, when we know we're in the days of Noah and Lot, now is when we should be separating ourselves, casting off, throwing away, getting it far away from us, the works of darkness. Getting out of our life the spirit of Nimrod, the spirit of Babel, getting that out of our house, getting it out of our life, examining our life. Say, God, is there anything in my life that exalts itself against you and what you have been doing down throughout history and time? Now is the time to cast off the works of darkness and to put on the armor of light. Now is a decision time. Now is when we must prepare the way in our heart. Make sure we are making our path straight. Make sure we are drawing nigh to God at this time. Make sure we are casting off. Make sure we are trimming our lamps. Prepare ye the way. Be ye ready. Now is the time when we purify and sanctify our life. 1 John 3:3. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself even as he is pure. When we have the knowledge that time is short and our Redeemer is returning soon, and we have the hope and expectation to see him face to face, when we have this hope, and if we say we have this hope, we should be purifying ourselves, casting off the works of darkness, trimming our lamp, and shining bright for Christ, putting on the armor of light. This is what we should be doing at this time. When we know the time, I highly encourage you to download our Be Ye Ready booklet. Examine these sheets, purify and sanctify, and ask the Lord, what are areas of my life that I need to cast off, that I need to trim, and how can I shine bright for you? One homework project you can do with these purify and sanctify sheets with your family and your kids too as well is thinking of the paths of life and the decisions we make in life and how we can go different ways. Just get some markers and mark out and diagram out different ways based on these purify and sanctify sheets of what we should be doing, what the Bible tells us we should be doing, and what we should not be doing. The Bible tells us the works of darkness that we should be casting off and that we should be avoiding. And the Bible also tells us the armor of light that we should be putting on and the fruits of the Spirit that we should be putting on and how we should think on certain things. So I highly encourage you, make this a family activity. And I highly suggest the Philippians 4:8 as a good framework because we're told to think on these things. And we should always be examining the way we are going with our mind, with our actions, with our passions. Which way are we going in life? We are called to prepare the way. Make straight your path. So we have to examine, which way am I going? What am I giving my energy to? What am I giving my passions to? What am I giving my thoughts to? Which way am I going in life? And so there's no right or wrong way to diagram it out. But just get some pieces of paper and with your family, go through it. And just rehearse and go down it line by line and say, is this something I should be casting off? Is this something I should be putting on? And as a family, ask the Lord to give you wisdom of, Lord, show us things that we need to cast off at this time, things we need to trim off, but then also what we need to put on and the paths that we need to be going in our life. Show us, Lord, how we can prepare our ways and how we can draw nigh to you at this time. Now, when we know the time, we should be purifying and sanctifying our lives, making ourselves ready for our bridegroom and for our Redeemer. And every man that hath this hope in him purifieth himself, even as he is pure. We are going to a wedding, and we have heard the trumpet call at midnight, Behold, the bridegroom cometh. Go ye out to meet him. Prepare ye the way. What are we doing? Are we rising up? Are we trimming our lamp? Are we making ourselves ready? When we know the time, there are things we should be doing. Who will we serve with our heart and life? When the Son of Man cometh, shall he find faith on the earth? Will he find us serving him and going out to meet him halfway? Another homework assignment I would suggest, someone sent this to me today, was a very good suggestion. So I would recommend you read Psalm 27. Read Psalm 27. So rehearse the purify and sanctify sheets. Ask the Lord for wisdom of how you can be ready. And then also read Psalm 27. God loves you very much, and he is calling to us, so let us rise up and let us go out to meet him halfway, serving Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.